Hello, welcome back to another Theory Thursday. Today we're talking about a bit of a touchy subject. Do you need to learn how to read music to play guitar? Now, I have my opinions and my suggestions about it. Some of what we're going to talk about crosses over with my other video, Do You Need Music Theory? But this is a standalone discussion. It's one that has enough information. It should be its own video. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I don't have any announcements. So I have my Casio A700 on. And I think that's it. So let's talk about it. Do you need to learn how to read music to play guitar? Let's go. Okay, we're not going to the whiteboard today because we're not drawing anything out. It's just me talking. So I'm just going to sit right here. So, do you need to learn to read music to play guitar? Short answer is no. No, you do not. Long answer is it totally depends. It totally depends on what your goals are, where you see yourself in the future when you think, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down. When you see yourself playing guitar, what are you doing? Like, is it just around the campfire? Is it on stage, in front of thousands of people? So, what your goals are will ultimately dictate what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be practicing, and all that stuff. So, first thing to figure out is what you want to do with the guitar. Okay? Now, when you start off, there's a couple of different charts here that I pulled up. And depending on what you want to do and where you want to go, you might see a couple different things along your guitar journey. Okay? When you start off, chances are you'll probably start off learning a few chords. Unless I think the Hal Leonard Beginner Guitar 1 book has you starting on notes first. But it quickly gets into chords anyway. So, no matter where you start, you're probably going to learn chords within the first couple months. And you're going to see something probably like this. Okay, this is the first type of chart that a lot of people see. This is Free Fallin' by Tom Petty. You can see there's words. Those are all the lyrics written out. And then above the words are chords, where you would presumably play the chord once you get to the word. Okay? Now, this is just a basic chart. I have a whole binder full of these because this is how I learned all my chords, right? The downside to this is you need to know the song to be able to play something like this. Because if you look at this, you don't know how that goes unless you've heard the song. Da 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 da. Right? How do you know it's not da 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 da? Right? You have to know the song to be able to play a chart like this. But if you know the songs, then these are perfect. I mean, like I said, I have hundreds of charts like these, and they're great, just great for playing around the campfire because they're easy to read. Everyone can look on the lyrics and you're just reading the chords above. They're fantastic to play like that. Now, the question, do you need to learn how to read music to play guitar? The answer is no, but when you think music, probably what you're thinking of is something that looks like this, right? Those are notes on a page. But this is also music, okay? This is also a chart. There are chords up, and you're reading those and putting them on the guitar. So I would call this reading music. It's just a different type of music, okay? Still, though, the question, do you need to learn to read music, depends on your goals, because you could get by just playing by ear. Like, if you don't want to learn how to read the lyrics as they're going by and play the chords. If you want to play by ear, that's totally fine too. You might not get as far as fast, but I mean, if that's all you want to do and you're having fun with it, What's the big deal? Yeah, you don't need 3. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. So, depending on your goals, you'll need to, you might not need to, whatever. But at a bare minimum, if you want to play with, around a campfire, people are saying, hey, do you know this song? Can you play this? I'll sing it, and you just play the chords. Something like this, I mean, it's really easy. So if we're talking about reading music, and we're not just talking about notes, right? Notes on a page, right? We're talking about chords too. I would recommend at least being able to read something like this, right? Just a chord chart. That's what this is called. Okay? Lyrics on a page, chords right above. You follow along. If you know the song, that's great. You don't need another singer. If you don't know the song, someone else can sing along and you can just follow along, right? Easy peasy. Something else you might see is something like this. You won't see this too much in the campfire game, but people who write originals and they want them played by professional bands, or the most time when you see something like this, it's musical theater, and it's the same thing. It's a chord chart. This is Amazing Grace. It's got the lyrics there, and it's got chords above, but what you also have on here that the other chart doesn't have is the rhythm. You have a time signature, you have a key. This is the same staff you would also see notes on, but they're just chords we're playing. So those slashes are beats. They don't necessarily mean to strum. So this doesn't necessarily mean strum, 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 C, 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 G, G, G. It just means you're filling that space. And there's 3 beats per measure, so that's why there's 3 slashes. Okay. An easy way to look at it is, and a great way to start off, is just doing 1 strum per beat. So that's also just another chord chart. Last thing you might see, and this is very specific to fretted instruments, is something like this. And you'll see on the top are notes, but we're looking right here, tab. Okay, this is something specific to fretted instruments because it's made for fretted instruments, right? Instead of the 5-line grand staff that we read notes on, we're looking at 6 lines and some numbers. Okay, and those numbers correspond to the frets, the lines correspond to the strings. So I might do another video just explaining all the charts you might come across, but depending on what you want to do, you might only come across a few of these, and you'll probably know what you need to know when you come across them. Okay, so do you need to learn how to read music to play guitar? No, you do not. But also, I think we need to widen our opinions on reading music, because reading that chord chart, I would also say, is reading music. Do you need to learn how to read notes on the grand staff? Also no, depending on your goals here. So let's just talk about places where you might need to learn how to read the notes on the staff, okay? Where you need to see that the top line, if there's a note there, you know that that's an F, right? And you can play that on the 1st fret, top string, okay? Stuff where you need to learn how to read notes on a page. If you want to be a pit musician, right, playing for musicals, playing in theater, constantly getting music, right, for the whole show. You switch between rhythm guitar and lead all the time. And sometimes it'll be very little lead time when things are changed. Things change on the fly. You have to watch the director, and you need to know those parts to be able to change on the fly with everyone, or else the show falls apart, right? Jazz musician, I would say you want to know how to read notes. And there'll be people in the comments say, well, this person didn't know how to read and they played just fine. That's fine. If you're a prodigy and you're doing fine, whatever, fine. But if you're trying to learn jazz, yeah, I recommend being able to read notes. At the very least, it'll let you analyze jazz standards, right, and be able to see the transitions and the relationships between the chords, not just the melody, but you can see where the melody's going, but at what point is this melody note in that chord? Well, you can see why that goes there, and yada, yada, yada. So at the very least, being able to read it and analyze it, okay? Classical guitar. It's a must. It's an absolute must. You can't get by in the classical world without reading music. Everyone on every instrument is reading notes on a page, okay? And guitar is not the outlier here. It cannot be, and there's just no way around it. You have to learn it. So if you want to be a classical guitarist, yes, notes on a page, yes. If you want to teach guitar, now this is a bit of a double-edged sword. If it depends on what level you're going to teach. If you're teaching beginner guitar, then it's maybe not so necessary, but it also depends on what your students want. If you go out into the community and say, I'm teaching beginner guitar, all students welcome, all ages welcome. Someone comes to you and says, I want to be a classical musician. Are you going to be able to prepare them for that? Probably not, if you don't know how to read notes on a page, right? So if you're just teaching basic chords and how to strum, no, you don't need to know notes on a page. You probably need to know a little bit of music theory with 5/1s, circle of fifths, relationships. You know what chords to teach who, and you can measure their progress and all that. But do you need to learn how to read notes? Depends. Anything higher than beginner, especially if you're going to high school or collegiate, yes, you're going to need to learn. Not only for the students, but you probably won't even get in to the program to teach. Not only that, but to teach there, you're going to need some sort of degree from some sort of college or university, and you won't get into that college or university without being able to read. Okay, so that's just the way life works. Some bands and some songwriting. Now I put some because it's real hit or miss. If you're part of a band, sometimes you will need to be able to read notes and sometimes you won't. If you're creating a band, with your 3 best buds and none of you know how to read music, you're just going to play what sounds good to you guys. That's fine. That's totally fine. You don't need to learn how to read notes and all that stuff. If you're going to join a band or you start a band, look at something like Snarky Puppy, right? Now, I guarantee you those guys had charts, right? Because one person writes a song and gives it to the rest of the band. And the amount of precision necessary to play something like that, you need sheet music. At the very least, chord charts and rhythm on the chord charts to know where your hits are and all that. So it's hit or miss depending on what kind of band you're going into, right? If it's folk, probably not, right? If it's jazz or jazz fusion, right, where it's less learning by ear based, right? It's more complex for complexity's sake sometimes. So that's the kind of stuff where you would need when you're joining bands. Songwriters, I only say that because sometimes most of the songwriters are really easy to deal with, right? And a lot of songwriters don't know how to play a lot of guitar. So when they're writing songs, it is only 3 chords, 4 chords, because that's all they know. Sometimes people are writing songs for bands, and depending on the genre, they'll come to you with full charts like you'll see in musical theater. And so it's stuff like that where you would need to be able to read notes on a page. Situations where you don't need to read notes on a page. Playing around the campfire, right? Playing for your family. Some bands and some songwriters, right? And for your own enjoyment. If you don't want to go down that road and you're having a blast just playing chords, that's great. We need to keep this instrument alive. And if that's the way we're doing it, I think that's fantastic. There are situations where you need it and situations where you don't. And if you don't do it, right? I will say this, though. It cannot hurt your playing. If you learn how to read notes on a page, There is no downside. There's absolutely no downside. It can only help. It can only help. So that was the discussion today. So long story short, do you need to learn how to read music to play guitar? No. No, you don't. However, you may need to depending on your goals. Also, music. Redefine what we're talking about. Is it notes on a page? Chord charts? Right? Natural number system? It's all music. If you can read one of those things, you can say, well, yeah, I read some music. Yeah. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I love reading and discussing with you guys. So, that's all I have. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks.